Hello, so today I'm going to talk about the top five most common obsessive compulsive disorder compulsions. I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder now for about 12 years since diagnosis. Mine specifically revolves around health related anxieties and existential themes. But the compulsions I'll discuss today are kind of the overarching compulsions that can take different forms based on the theme that you suffer from. So before I get into that, I just wanted to go through the DSM-5 criteria for OCD. So OCD is um, obsessive compulsive. So there's going to be obsessions, and this is where kind of it can take different themes. So your theme could be health or contamination or it could be it could latch onto anything you really care about. So it's defined as the recurrent and persistent thoughts, urges, or images that are experienced as intrusive and unwanted, causing a marked increase in anxiety or distress. And this drives you to try to kind of relieve that discomfort and anxiety through compulsions or compulsive behavior. So check so different things like checking or hand washing or a mental act like counting or praying, and you kind of feel compelled to do it to relieve that anxiety. It can be very time consuming, and that's kind of the biggest impact on your life is that your life becomes very small in a sense that all you end up doing is compulsively checking or ruminating about the fear that something bad is going to happen. So again, the OCD cycle, it starts with an obsessive thought. So for me, it's I'm afraid I might have diabetes. So I get anxious. That thought is very anxiety provoking. Compulsive behavior might be researching to figure out, researching my blood test results or different fears I might have about the treatment of diabetes and the outcomes of someone, which then might give me temporary relief. Sometimes it doesn't, but it can give relief if I feel like I may, avoid the fear, and then that kind of reinforces more obsessive thoughts. So then I feel like, okay, if I do this compulsive behavior, it's going to give me relief. And then every time that comes off, the thought comes up about having diabetes, I go through the cycle. And this can just go round and round and round and round and round for forever. So in terms of the top five OCD compulsions, when I say like the top five most common, I feel like every type of theme falls into these five different overarching compulsions. So the first is going to be checking. So for me, I could be checking like my blood sugar, or I could be checking if I have like diabetes symptoms, like my urine smells sweet, or if my eyes are blurry, et cetera, et cetera. But here's 10 different examples of different themes and how that checking might present itself. So you might check if you're afraid that someone's going to break in, you might keep checking if the front door is locked. Health or medical, which is in mine. It could be checking your heart rate, which is another thing I do is check my pulse because I have a lot of heart palpitations and premature atrial contractions, which causes me to constantly check my pulse. So if someone has perfectionism, they might reread, and they'll never get something done because they're so worried about there being any kind of error in their whatever they're writing. So religious might be praying over and over and over, or praying, sorry, excuse me, praying correctly to make sure that they, um, or checking if they committed a sin unintentionally. Relationship checking, this is common, is do you love me? 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 Which often drives the partner crazy. mentally checking, repeating, going over the same memory over and over and over and over again. um, you could check for if a certain number of steps were taken or if a specific object was placed correctly to avoid triggering bad luck, or checking if the stove is on, checking any type of kind of checking to see if the bad thing happened. The next one, avoidance. So you might, for me, I might avoid the doctors because I'm afraid they're going to tell me I have diabetes, or they might avoid cooking because if they avoid cooking, they might not leave the stove on. Avoid writing because if you don't write, then you can't make a mistake. Um, you might avoid looking at old photos or places that trigger you. Any type of behavior that avoids like you getting triggered, honestly, and then that could often cause you to avoid things that are necessary in your life. This greatly impacts your ability to, to get on with your life and experience life. Research, this is one I do a lot. So for me, I might research about diabetes and see if that can help me figure out, if I'm going to develop it. But one might um, avoiding working with a specific, you might avoid working with a specific research equipment or um, physical safety reassurance. Reassurance is the next one. So you might ask people for reassurance. You might ask doctors for reassurance. You might constantly ask if the door is locked. You might ask relationship if everything's okay. You might ask friends if their opinions on things, if you are afraid of the decision that you made. Just anything where you might try to reassure through an external party. And the last one is rumination. So constantly thinking about whether the stove was on, constantly thinking about if I have diabetes, constantly thinking if I've made a mistake in the past, constantly ruminating over and over if something you did or said was wrong, ruminating, just trying to figure out. Rumination is just trying to figure it out with your thoughts, and you could just be in deep thought about what happened or what might happen. But those are the top five most common compulsions that people with OCD experience. Let me know in the comments how you might feel about these different compulsions and how they might present.